It's almost the end of the year, and today I wanted to recommend some really good and easy to read books which can be read by everyone and without giving a lot of time and effort to it. Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. So here on my channel I talk about books, and today, as you have already guessed, I'm going to recommend to you some easy to read books. Now there are books that might have easy English, but the content might still be a bit complex. And so I have brought to you some books which you do not have to put so much effort into analyzing them. They're both easy in language as well as in their content, and they are well loved by so many people. And I would be specifically recommending fiction books in this video. For non-fiction books, I'll make a separate video. The first book that I want to recommend is a Japanese novel, and it's The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Ogawa. I read this book this year and really fell in love with it. Now, it is a very simple story and very touching as well. And it's about this former maths professor whose memory lasts for only 80 minutes. And after those minutes are over, the professor has to start again. His full-fledged memory actually stops in the year 1975. Now, the present timeline of the book is around 1992. One day, a housekeeper is assigned to this professor's house. The housekeeper has to be reintroduced to him every single day because after 80 minutes are over, he forgets her. The housekeeper also has a son, and slowly he also starts coming to the professor's house. And this is actually the story of these three people and how, despite the memory problem that the professor has, he goes on to form such a beautiful bonding with the mother and son duo. And it's a beautiful story of their bonding and friendship. And the professor is obsessed with maths, and he connects with the world through maths, and he also connects with the people around him through maths, and he also connects with the mother and son duo through maths. And slowly his love for maths also gets to the housekeeper, and she also forms a renewed interest in maths. So this story is about a lot of things. It's mainly about this friendship, and it's also about maths and how maths plays a role in bringing these three people together. And it's also about, how friendship can be found in unlikely places and situations. The second book that I would recommend is The Dutch House by Anne Patchett. And it is actually a family saga, and it also has a few typical elements of a family saga, for example, an evil stepmother. But it is more than just that. So here we are following the story of this brother and sister duo who lives in this very grand palace-like house called the Dutch House. And one day, their father remarries, and a stepmother enters their life. And their life drastically changes when the stepmother throws them out of the Dutch House. This is a significant turn in the book. This is where the main story actually begins, because we follow the growth of the siblings as they try to build their lives from the ground up, because neither they have the Dutch House nor their father's wealth. They have nothing with them, and they had to go through a lot of struggles. And there is more to the story. I cannot go into details about the book, but one more important thing about this book is that how they're never ever able to get rid of their past, more particularly the Dutch House. And this is where the title of the book actually makes sense, because the Dutch House in this book is treated like a character. It in itself becomes a third character. The Dutch House represents the siblings' past. It represents everything that the siblings had in their former lives. Even when they were living in the Dutch House, it was still like a mystery to them. And now at the present moment, when they became adults, even after several years of being ousted from the Dutch House, even after growing a lot, they would come back again and again to that place to have a glimpse of the Dutch House from a distance. So the story moves back and forth between the past and the present when the siblings are adults, and it is a beautiful story. It has a lot of things, and I just love the way the author used an object in her book, a house, and gave it so much depth to it. The third book that I'd recommend is Anxious People by Frederick Buckman. This book has elements of both humor and serious topics, which is like the author's characteristic writing style. This is particularly about this group of adults who come together during a robbery and a hostess situation. Yes, there's a robbery in the book, but it's not the usual kind of robbery. It's actually a very strange and funny kind of robbery and hostess situation. I cannot say more about this, but things really get very confusing and strange and funny. This book focuses on a lot of people, a lot of these adults, and each one of them has their own backstory. It is particularly a story about adults and how at most times they fail at being adults, and that's completely okay. This book is about relationships and bondings and mental health. Mental health is a very important topic in this book. Now, in the beginning of the book itself, the author goes on to say how, like, what the story is about in his characteristic humorous style, and he says that this story is about a lot of things but mostly about idiots. So it needs saying from the outset that it's always very easy to declare that other people are idiots, but only if you forget how idiotically difficult being human is. Now I cannot not mention the author's other work, which is A Man Called Away. This is actually my favorite, but this one was his first book, and this one actually gets recommended a lot, which is why I did not bring up this book first. Mostly it's about this man called Away. He's like old man who is very grumpy and rigid with rules. Basically, he's the kind of person who's like a very old school style, and he does not want to get adjusted with the modern ways of living, and he has a critical eye about various things and people. He's always getting annoyed at very small things about other people and other situations. But obviously these kind of people who seem so rough from the outside have a soft interior. Our character Away is also like that. He has his own backstory, and it's very emotional, very touching. Again, a book that has both elements of humor and tragedy, and you definitely laugh and cry with this grumpy old man. The next book that I'm going to recommend is Eleanor, Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. Now, I picked it up last year. At first I was kind of skeptical about it. I just picked it up because I wanted something light-hearted and funny, but I was wrong. This book is actually, it deals with some really serious topics, and it has serious themes in it. It has a humorous side to it, but that is not the main aspect of the book. The main character of Eleanor is so odd, and the story is told from her point of view, and she has a sarcastic approach to things. So the narration, it feels very odd and also very funny at many parts. From the outside, Eleanor has a normal office job. She goes to work daily, she comes back home daily, she talks to her mother, she waters her plant, and from the outside, that's it. But in reality, that's not all. The title of the book itself is very symbolic. It kind of makes us question whether Eleanor Oliphant is actually fine as she claims herself to be. And the main thing I liked about this book is that it has a very subtle way of expressing these things. There are very simple and significant moments in the book which you need to watch out for, because they show what Eleanor might actually be going through from the inside. This book very subtly focuses on topics like loneliness and other mental health issues that people often ignore. And I really like the friendship in this book, the characterization of this particular male character called Raymond. Now, Raymond's character just goes on to show how some people just go out of their way to be a friend to someone, barring any kind of judgment or criticism. It shows how the presence of these kind of people in someone's life can actually change them for the better. This book mainly goes on to show how some small little acts or moments of kindness and friendship can have a life-changing effect on someone. The next book that I would recommend is Char Gochar by Vivek Shambhag. And this is a bit different from the previous books I mentioned because it's kind of dark, not overtly dark, but it focuses on certain dark topics like the evil of money, wealth, and how it can change relationships. So it is about this joint family who lives in the city of Bangalore, and initially they are poor and then they become suddenly very, very rich, and this kind of changes the whole dynamics and the relationships in the family. From the outside, everything might seem normal, but there are certain subtle changes are happening, and the whole story is being told from the perspective of one of the sons in the family. And this is a very short book. The language is pretty easy, and within these few pages you get to witness the changes that are happening in the family, how the relationships are changing, how the interactions between them are changing, how the status of each family member is changing. And things kind of aren't as simple as it once was prior to their becoming rich. The book shows the role of money, how it affects people. And the ending is very, very vague. You have to form your own guess about what might have actually happened. The last book that I'd recommend is one of my favorite books of all time. It's The 40 Rules of Love by Elif Shafak. It's a book that I cannot stop recommending. I have to recommend it. It's a very, very beautiful story. It's a spiritual story. And also on the basis of the title, it's very easy to think that this is a love story of some sort, but no, it is more than that. It has a small love story going on, but that's not the main theme of the book. There are two parallel storylines in this story. On one side, we follow the story of Ella, who is a literary agent, and one day she comes across a manuscript from an unknown author, and that manuscript, it is the story of one of the greatest Sufi poets of all time, Rumi. And so we again follow the story. Within the story, we follow the story of Rumi as well. We go into 13th century Konya, when Rumi used to live, and we also follow the story of Shams of Tabriz, who used to be a companion and teacher of Rumi. There are a lot of topics about Sufism. The main focus of this book is the universal concept of love, or the spiritual essence of love. We as human beings have a habit of categorizing love or fitting love into these boxes, but love as a spiritual or universal concept is so much larger than that. It's the thing that connects all of us, all of the human beings, even the non-living beings, each and everything that's there in the universe. It's connected by love. And the description of love in this way, the overall story of Rumi and Shams of Tabriz, and also on the other side, Ella's story, they add so much depth to the whole book. I love the second story, that is the story of Rumi and Shams of Tabriz, more than Ella's story. But the book as a whole is so beautiful. So those were a few fiction book recommendations which are easy to read, and it won't take a lot of time and effort. Hopefully I'll make another one with just non-fiction books, easy to read non-fiction books. Till then, do take care and have a great time reading books or doing whatever you like to do, and I'll see you next time very soon with another video. Goodbye.